I am so thrilled to have you all here with me today. If you have any questions about our presentation, please go ahead and let me know. But we're here today just for a little bit of housekeeping. I already muted most of you, so if people are being let in, Ka'aleleo, if you can go ahead and make sure that the attendee mics are muted, but please keep your microphones muted. I know some of you are having your lunch. Go ahead, have your lunch with your mics muted. That's great. And please hold questions until the end of the presentation. Or if you're like me and you're forgetful, go ahead and add them to the chat. That's totally fine as well. We'll get to them at the end of the presentation. And for those that we don't get to, we'll make sure that we document them and then we'll post those to our website as well. So you can always refer back to the responses on the website. Again, during Q&A, once we get to that part of the presentation, please use the raise your hand function and then unmute yourself when we call your name to ask the questions. Or you can also type your questions using the chat feature. We're going to, like I said before, we're going to be recording for transcription purposes. And so if you're uncomfortable with that, you can either log off if you don't want to be part, or you can just turn everything off yourself. And all of our presentations and questions and answers will be posted to the Office of Native Hawaiian Relations website, linked below, but I believe you also have our information in the emails that we went ahead and sent to you as well. Okay, how come it's not advancing? All right, so just a little bit of background for what the purpose of this meeting in particular is we're going to be giving you some background on the Native Act, which is the mechanism through which we fund the HŌʻIHI Grants Program. We'll also be discussing our HŌʻIHI Grants Program and giving you some key provisions of the NOFO, which is an acronym that we use for the Notice of Funding Opportunity. Those are things you're going to want to keep in mind as we proceed or as you prepare your proposals. We'll also share with you some of the technical assistance information with our partners within the Department of the Interior, and some key deadlines and important reminders as you prepare your proposals. You'll have my contact information, and then we'll do our Q&A. So a little bit of background for how HŌʻIHI came into be. HŌʻIHI is funded through the Native Act, which was co-sponsored by our own Senator Brian Schatz. And one of the key purposes of the Native Act are to encourage Native Hawaiian organizations to engage more fully in Native American tourism activities, which really, for the purposes of HŌʻIHI, is to provide grants, in particular, to Native Hawaiian organizations to encourage really culturally responsible and relevant tourism within our own communities. And I'll get a little bit into that on our next few slides. So there are some key provisions that are important to pay attention to for the Native Act, and it's really to take action to empower our organizations to showcase our own heritage, our foods, our traditions, our histories, and the vibrancy and vitality of our communities to the broader population. And so to that end, we're supporting efforts of our Native Hawaiian organizations to identify, enhance, maintain traditions and cultural features that are important to sustain the distinctiveness of our communities. So really the things that make Hawaii, Hawaii from a Native Hawaiian perspective, and to provide our visitors with experiences that are both authentic and respectful. And that really ties into our name, which I will we'll talk about in just a little bit. We're also looking at enhancing efforts to promote understanding and respect for diverse cultures and subcultures within the United States overall. So our Native Hawaiian communities fold into that, as well as the relevance of our culture to the overall nation. So HŌʻIHI is managed, it's helpful to understand how HŌʻIHI is managed, and it's managed by the U.S. Department of the Interior, the Office of Native Hawaiian Relations, which is our office, and we provide the funding to Native Hawaiian organizations for the purposes of furthering the Native Act. And we partner with the Department of the Interior Business Center, that we call it IBC. So there are many, many acronyms, but IBC is our partner who provides technical assistance and administrative support for the program. So I will say, if you do have some technical questions, I may not be the best person to answer those, but I will do my best to answer as much as I can. And if not, you can go ahead and I can forward those questions to our IBC partners. So the HŌIHI program overview, it's a funding mechanism that we are giving through the Native Act. The CFDA number is very important. It's located here. It's in our notice of funding opportunity. It's in I think our press releases as well. But that's one of the ways that you are able to find us in grants.gov. But it's 15.068 under Native Hawaiian Community Guest Stewardship. The program title is the Heritage Tourism Opportunities in Hawaii. So HŌIHI is the acronym. And what we're really looking at doing with our HŌIHI program is promoting our values of HŌIHI through our tourism activities. So reflecting the Olelo No'eo, e HŌIHI aku, e HŌIHI mai, which show respect and get respect, which is really the core of our program. We really want to make sure that we're engaging visitors authentically, but also helping them to build understanding and awareness and respect for our culture. And through showing respect, we're really hoping that we can have visitors be welcomed and have them understand their shared kuleana in helping us to ho'omau and perpetuate our values and our cultures and our traditional practices. So to dive a little bit deeper into HŌIHI's program goals, there are 4 main goals of our program. And we're really looking, and we've touched on some of these already, but we're looking at uplifting, perpetuating, and in some cases reviving traditions that through education and demonstration of history usage, protocols, and cultural practices. So these might be things that are regularly practiced and known to be our cultural practices, or some that might be very specific to certain communities and parts of Hawaii or certain cultural practitioners. And that's what we're saying with this term. And I actually use these 2 photos that are from our past grantees from the Native Hawaiian Hospitality Association from a community event that they sponsored, because I wanted to showcase 2 different cultural practices, one that's very well known, lei making, and one that's lesser well known, hanahi, which is the picture at the top. That's a practice that my daughter loves to do, but we found that it's not as widely practiced as it was in the past. So not a lot of her friends know how to do hanahi. And I just think this is a wonderful example of sharing practices that are both well known and not as well known with the broader community. We're also looking at supporting the maintenance, enhancement, and protection of our natural resources, our wahi kupuna, our wahi pana, at areas that are impacted by tourism. As many of you know, I don't really have to tell you, as many of you are practitioners, our cultural practices and traditions are deeply tied to specific places. And so we want to make sure that our resources and those places are protected to ensure that our cultural practices can thrive. And then we're also looking at enhancing the entrepreneurial capacity of our Native Hawaiian communities by creating business opportunities in the visitor industry. So things that are viable for our people, that make sense for our people, and offering business and development training or stimulating economic activity. And or providing authentic and respectful visitor experiences, again, that convey the HŌIHI kuleana that we've been talking about. So reaffirming the principles of reciprocation to place, resources, and traditional knowledge, so that we can sustain and thrive and help our communities to continue to thrive. So overall, the HŌIHI program has 3 main objectives, and it's to educate visitors in the history, usage, purpose of, and protocols associated with traditional cultural practices, engaging our visitors in cultural practices so that they can develop firsthand authentic experiences that help them to gain a greater understanding and appreciation of our culture and our people and Hawaii, and to really undertake activities with visitors that convey and respect and reaffirm our principles of reciprocation. So helping our visitors to really understand what we do and how that ties into their concept of Hawaii, and really help to deepen that understanding and appreciation of our place. And just to backpedal a little bit to give you a little bit of background on what we mean when we're using certain terms. So in terms of Native Hawaiian traditional cultural practices, we've created a list here, but it is not exhaustive by any means. But these include, but are not limited to, ʻōlelo Hawaiʻi, farming practices, food preparation, materials gathering and usage, production of implements, products and adornments, cultural activities such as hula, lauhala or weaving arts, traditional construction and recreation. So those are just examples. Again, it's not an exhaustive list. There are practices that might be unique or in danger of being lost. We don't want to discourage those applicants who might be reviving cultural practices as well. So know that if you don't fall into any of these categories, that does not necessarily mean that your idea or your practice is not included. And when we talk about visitors or guests, we're not just talking about those who come from the continent. We're talking about residents of our state and visitors and guests who travel to Hawaii from abroad. So it can be inclusive of our local residents as well. And when we talk about reciprocation, we're looking at projects that really highlight that gesture of appreciation and respect. I keep making this motion. Again, I'm Portuguese, so I make these motions a lot, but it's really a mutual understanding and respect. So making sure that our visitors are gaining something from their experience with the practice. And then when we talk about project location or site, I'm actually going to touch on that in a little bit, but it might depend on your proposed activities, but we're talking about specific places within Hawaii. I've created a list here just to give you an idea, because I have had some folks reach out to me to ask about some of our past program awardees. These are available on our website, as well as, I want to say, this is the 2023 list. The 2022 list is also available. But this is not exhaustive at all. And if your project does not fit within any of these, it's okay. These are just to give you an example of some of the projects that we funded in the past. So you'll see that some are very site specific and very specific to a certain community. But you'll also see that some are for broadening awareness across the Pai'aina. So a variety of projects. On our website as well, there are hyperlinks to the actual program. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about these organizations and what they do, please feel free to visit our website, and you can connect to their websites as well. So getting into the real nitty-gritty of the actual notice of funding opportunity, I'm not sure if you've had a chance to take a look at it yet, but it's posted to grants.gov. So anytime you're going to be applying for a federal grant, you're going to be going to grants.gov. So it's a good site for you to familiarize yourself with. But I've pulled up the page here so that you can see, if you're searching under that top banner where it says search for grants, you can search by the opportunity number as well as the CFDA number. And that's why we've posted them here. So the funding opportunity number is listed here, as well as the title, so you can make sure that you're connected to the correct one. So it's the HŌʻIHI Native Act Grant Program for Native Hawaiian Organizations. And the CFDA number is here so you can see it. In total, we'll have about $1 million to award. The minimum amount we're looking to award is about $75,000, all the way up to $200,000 in awards. Most awards will likely be around $120,000. That's not a hard and fast rule, but that's just looking at past awardees. So know that it's going to be a range. And then we'll likely make between 7 and 10 awards for fiscal year 2024. So continuing on to some of the important dates related to the notice of funding opportunity and for application. So we posted the actual notice on April 4th, and we're currently holding the pre-proposal informational session. Thank you for attending. Our application dates our application closing date is June 3rd of this year. So June 3rd, 2024. And please note that it is at 5:59 p.m. Hawaii Standard Time. So not midnight, not noon, 5:59 p.m. Hawaii Standard Time. So make sure you're writing that down. You've made a note of it, put it on your calendar, whatever you need to do to remember. Application submittal will be done through grants.gov. Again, if you're applying for federal grants, that's going to be something you're going to want to bookmark. Please note that you will be required to register in both grants.gov and sam.gov. So if you have not applied for a federal grant in the past, or you have, and it was not even that many years ago, but it was a little bit ago, the DUNS number is no longer a thing. You need to register in sam.gov. So please make sure that you follow all of those guidance. Even if you're not going to apply for HŌʻIHI, I still strongly recommend, if you're thinking of applying for federal funds in the next few years, go ahead and make sure that you're registered in grants.gov and sam.gov. It'll just make everything much easier for you in the future. If you have any issues with your registration, let us know and we can try and assist you as best as we can. We can work with our partners. Get these registrations done as soon as you can, because it will make everything easier once you're ready to submit your actual proposal. And we're looking at around an August 15th, mid-August, maybe late August, but probably around mid-August award date. And your grant periods are going to be from 1 year to 3 years. So you don't have to spend all the money in that first year. You just got to let us know how long you're going to take for your project. And so to that end, some of the key provisions of the Notice of Funding Opportunity are found in Section D2. So I've listed them here, but if you're referring back to the proposal and the notice, Section D2 is going to have all the points that you really need to make sure that you're thorough and you touch upon. The first is the statement of need. So why is your project necessary, and how does it advance the goals of the Native Act? The second are your project goals and objectives. We need to know what your outcomes are for your grant and or for the project, and how they'll be achieved through the objectives. Please make sure that you're tying your objectives and your goals to project activities, which I'm going to get to next. But if you have project goals, they should have something being done to meet those goals. And third, your project activities and your work plan. What activities are going to be conducted to help you to reach those project goals and objectives, and vice versa. So when you're writing your proposal, make sure that you're checking between the two. If you have activities that are not tied to goals and objectives, that's gonna make it really hard for us to understand. So please help us connect the dots. Next is your project schedule and your milestones. So we're looking here for our timelines of the work and project activities. Anything that'll help. A Gantt chart is helpful, but writing it out is also fine. We're not necessarily looking for specific dates, just because we know we have to have some flexibility, but month to month or quarterly timelines, anything like that, to help us know that you know how to manage your time and budget your time in relationship to the activities and your schedule and your award period. That's helpful for us. Then we want to know, in terms of project monitoring and evaluation, how you're going to monitor your project and evaluate success. And that we're not prescriptive on that. We just want to know, what kinds of measures you're going to be doing and how you're going to be collecting that information. So is it a survey? Is it you're counting visitors? Is it you're going to be asking people or doing interviews, those kinds of things? Just we need to know how you're going to be doing that, so that we can know what a successful project looks like from you, and potentially have that information as we need it as well. And then if you are working with other organizations or partners, we want to know about that. So we want to know about your organization and how and why you came to do this work. But if you're working with partners to also provide this project, we want to know about them and how they are qualified and how they'll support the effort. Then for reciprocation and sustainability, how are those activities, again, going to tie into what HŌʻIHI is all about? How are they going to convey respect and reciprocation for the cultural practice and are partnering with the broader community. This is only number 8 is only relevant if your project is kind of site specific, but if you have a specific project area that you're going to be working in of a hipana or a specific location, please can you provide us with the location address and a map of the project area so that we know generally what you're going to be doing, especially if it's not somewhere that we would know about that's very well known. And then in terms related to that, if you have site access or control or require federal environmental compliance, please let us know what your authorization is to conduct those activities with visitors. And then finally, you're going to be asked for a detailed budget proposal and justification. So that's your SF424A budget form and a narrative and justification. So just like with the project goals and objectives and activities, how those things tie together, your budget form, narrative, and justification should also tie together. So they should tell a story as well. All the items in your budget should be included in your narrative, and there should be a description of why those purchases or those budget items are necessary for the successful administration of your program. And then so just some other minor things related to it. Well, not minor because SAM.gov is not minor, but other related to the narrative details. Make sure that your project summary and narrative are no more than 20 pages total. We've given you some guidelines. They're both here and in the NOFO, so please make sure that you're adhering to them. Make sure that your SAM.gov registration is complete. And then there are certain documents that may not be required for your organization, but double check to make sure that you have them available. So an attestation that confirms your eligibility, your documentation of 501c3 status, if that's how you're applying under. You may have to, depending on your organization, we may need you to complete your certification regarding lobbying. So please make sure that you're reviewing those documents to see whether or not they apply to you. Your conflict of interest disclosure, and then any overlap or duplication of effort statements as required for your project. So if you're wondering how these applications are going to be scored, I wanted to make sure that we were very clear about that. So the evaluation committee is going to be made up of about 5 to 8 individuals that have experience with cultural practices, visitor industry, and programmatic expertise. They'll be reviewing your project. All projects will have a total of 100 points available in their scoring. The first category is going to be technical merit. It's about 45 points. It's the bulk of the project or scoring. And it's really looking at your project goals and milestones, making sure they're clearly described, your methodology is outlined, and your activities are sound and likely to be effective toward achieving the goals that you've described for your project. We'll also be looking at your work plan and the project schedule to make sure that it's reasonable and you have a realistic schedule with milestones and outputs so that we know that how we're going to be helping you to keep track of your project. For monitoring and evaluation, there's a total of 15 points, and we want to make sure that it's clear but that relevant information is going to be collected to evaluate your project's efficacy. There's a total of 10 points for qualifications so that the Native Hawaiian organization has experience, knowledge, and is able to perform the work and achieve the project goals that are described. And then finally, the budget category is 15 points, and it's to make sure that your project is really expending funds in an effective manner to implement the work and work up on the project schedule. Just a quick recap. Proposal deadline is due June 3rd, 2024, again at 5:59 p.m. Hawaii Standard Time. Okay, can't stress that enough. Proposal submittal. So again, you need to be registered, and applications are going to be submitted through grants.gov. Please use the grants.gov workspace so you can see there's a screenshot of the workspace overview right here so you can get a little bit of background, but you can go poke around. It's not terribly complicated to look through, but use that grants.gov workspace to complete your SF424 forms and upload any attachments or technical proposals and requirements that you need to complete your application package. So if you ever have any questions too, you can reach out to us or our IBC partners, or you can also refer to the NOFO, and it has all the documents necessary for a complete proposal listed in the Notice of Funding Opportunity. Again, the awards are, we have a total of $1 million to award out. The least amount we're going to be doing is $75,000 up to about $200,000. We'll probably make between 7 and 10 awards. And again, we're anticipating announcing those awards mid-August. And your grant periods are going to be between 1 to 3 years. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to me. Here is my contact information. You also probably have it via email, but if you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I am happy to answer them. Our IBC contact is Tristan Harley. He is the technical expert that will help us with those kinds of questions. I would recommend reaching out to me first, and if I can't answer the questions, I will also loop in Tristan to help us with getting everything clarified. All right, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen right now because we are into our Q&A session. So thank you all so much for being here and listening and following the rules for questions. And I guess I open up the floor to everybody for questions.
Yeah, and once you answer there's one in the chat about the type of applicants. You see that? I'll put it in the chat itself too. But this is the definition of a nonprofit organization per 2 CFR 200, which we're governed by. So I guess so any type of nonprofit organization, and so as long as it follows that criteria, and then obviously the other eligibility criteria that we have within HŌʻIHI, then yes, then that would mean your organization qualifies.
All right, I see a second question. Thank you for that, Ka'aluleo. I see a second question regarding match. There are no match requirements for HŌʻIHI. Are there any restrictions on what the funds can be used for? I don't believe we have restrictions other than that they need to match what the purpose and project activities are, and they need to be reasonable. So that will need to be in your budget justification as well. But yeah, there's nothing that prevents anything.
To add on to that, there are some, I guess there are certain rules for certain projects, I guess, within 2 CFR 200, which is which is the regulations that we're governed by for grants. But for the most part, whatever you guys can justify, I think we can work with you on what that is. And as long as you write a good justification for why that purpose meets what we're trying to do for HŌʻIHI, then we can make that argument as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw a hand. I don't know if it disappeared to the chat.
Oh, I see two questions. So Malia asked about reporting requirements. Yeah, so reporting requirements will likely be revised this year, and it'll likely be depending on your project activities and your scope of your project. So we'll be working with IBC as those projects get in. That's one of the reasons that we want to know the timelines, and we want you to be really clear on your timelines for activities, because we're going to try to align those. We're going to try to align reporting requirements better to the project specific timelines. And then Tori, I see your question about how many applications we expect to receive, but I'm going to actually kick that over to Ka'aluleo because I am brand new to our office, so I don't know how many we got in the past.
Yeah, well, so HŌʻIHI has been growing kind of year after year. I think the first year there was only like 10 to 12 applications, and the second time around there was about 20 that were reviewable. So assuming most of us that are in this call put in an application, then we'll be increasing in that way. But yeah, I know it's a little tricky with understanding how many applicants, and then is it worth the time to put in one? So we had 20 last year for reference. Okay, Ala, you want to go to Kimo?
Yeah. So Kimo, are the grants? Kimo asked, are the grants tax exempt? He threw it into the chat, right? Kimo, that's the question, right? Sorry, I just want to make sure.
Oh, we'll try unmute you yourself.
Do I have
please.
to do it? You can unmute yourself.
I think you can unmute.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Yeah, Molly. Yeah, I just wanted to know if the grants are tax exempt. Can you hear me?
I think I guess it depends on what your organization is set up as. I'm not super familiar with how all that works, but there's different nonprofit statuses like 501c3 and 501c4 and all those things, and that's kind of up to how your organization is set up for how that tax, I guess, exemption works.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, my organization is a 501c3 with the code of Hawaiian culture and ethnic awareness. So.
Okay. Yeah, it
right
sounds
now,
like it should be then.
It should be.
I guess I'll have to talk to the tax people.
I would recommend checking in with your tax people too, because you might even just have to report that you've received the funds, but it might actually not be taxable, but you might have to include it in your reporting.
Yeah, I think I'll do that so I won't be kind of surprised at the end of the year. Yeah,
I don't think you're going to be taxed on it, but you might have to report that you've received grant funding at some point and where it's come from. And Malia noted, and Malia made a note that you are exempt. But again, we would also recommend that you reach out to your accounting office just to make sure that you're being compliant with all required laws.
Mahalo.
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks, Malia.
Yeah, it also depends on your activities. Now that I'm thinking about it, under HŌIHI, it might depend on what activities you're doing. So again, your accounting office is going to be your best bet to make sure that you're being compliant. All right, I'm so sorry. I see a couple of other questions. Kili'i, I see your question. Working with existing visitors and guests, or are there visitors and guests that will be directed by state agencies? Kili'i, can you clarify what you mean by that? Sorry. Hold on. I'll see if I can.
Okay, can you hear me?
There you are. Yep.
I was just wondering if our INA-based organizations, does the grant support them in working with visitors and guests that they're already working with, or are there visitors and guests being referred by, I don't know, state agencies that these orgs need to work with?
Oh, no, it's who they invite into their to participate. So it can be folks that they're already currently working with, but they can also be, the grant could also be to expand opportunities to work with, to broaden the outreach as well.
Okay, perfect. Mahalo. So like having international like folks from Aotearoa or whatever come over and share culture. Okay, mahalo.
Yeah, the only thing, I mean, to kind of add to that response and question, visitor, we kind of take a loose term on kind of tourism or visitors, right? We're all kind of visitors to different aina in Hawaii too, right? Like I'm from Kailua Oahu, and if I visit Hawaii Island, I'm technically a visitor or things like that too, right? So we all, yes, we want to teach the people that are coming from the continent or other places around the Honua to Hawaii, but we also want to educate our own people as well here in Hawaii too. So those are all kinds of different types of projects that we've helped support through this. So
mahalo.
All right. I'm not sure I see anything else in the chat. Did anybody else have?
Malia has one more.
Oh, Malia, I see.
Yeah.
So sorry. is travel included in this grant opportunities, or are there activities that you won't fund? Okay, I think this goes back to our other budget question about items that are off limits. There are not items like travel could be included. It just depends on whether or not it's tied to the grant activities that are justifiable. If it's aligned with the project scope and the project goals and it's justified, then we will consider it.
Anybody else? Any other questions? Okay. No.
Oh, sorry, Kelly, one quick question. And you may have already addressed this. Sorry, I took me a little bit to get on this app. If accepted, funds would drop when?
We'll make award announcements mid-August, probably around August 15th is when we're shooting for. We like to beat the Fed the Fed deadlines, just so we don't get stuck and mired in everybody else's administrative issue. So we try to get it out around then. But like the award period is going to be between 1 to 3 years. So it depends on the scope and nature of the projects, but that's about how long the project periods are. And then if you're not familiar with federal grants too, please note that there's some flexibility in the length of time when you're doing your awards and reporting. That gets tied into when you draw down your funds as well.
And just from our other past grants, project start dates won't begin at the earliest would be October 1st. And given the federal timelines and things, access to the actual money probably won't occur until maybe October 15th. So just that gives us kind of an idea of when the earliest projects can start. But that can be flexible as well based on, of course, what you guys are doing. Yeah. So. Yeah, good question.
Okay.
I got one last question. You know, for filling out the grants themselves, we can get to the instructions of everything on the website, Office of Native Hawaiian Relations. Okay.
Yes, everything should be on the website. So if you're not having issues finding it, Kimo, let me know, because I updated it. So if it's not there, then it's my fault. But everything should be there. I double, triple, quadruple check. But if there's something, or if there's something that we need that you want us to add, that it's either we need to clarify or we're missing a piece, or something would be helpful, let us know, because we can help and make that accessible for everyone as well. It's really important to us.
Yeah. Good. Malo.
All right. Oh, and I see a couple more questions. I think. Oh, sorry. Hold on. Ooh.
Dana first, and then.
Yeah, Dana. Sorry, I see it. Yeah. If the de minimis administrative percentage maximum is changed in October, would we be able to revise the budget to include the new hire, the 15%? I believe so, Brad. Yeah.
I think that would have to be something. Well, so the grant agreements will be put together probably in August or July, August time period. So the de minimis rate is probably going to be 10% within your grant agreement, which you're held to. Of course, if something like this were to change and you receive the grant, I'm sure that's something we can discuss within the grant process. And we've done plenty of grant modifications and things, so that's not beyond the scope of what we can do. So if that does happen, we can talk about it later for sure.
Yeah, but please write for what the current rates are at this point in time.
Yeah, so if folks don't know, the de minimis rate is for indirect charges. As a nonprofit organization, you can request up to 10% of your requested funds can be used for indirect charges. So that's a thing, and that's an actual thing in there. So indirect charges is anything not directly related to the actual project activities. There are exceptions for folks that do have a negotiated indirect charge rate. So that would actually require having the actual negotiated rate agreement that you have with the federal government. So we do allow higher than 10%, but you need that NICRA negotiated rate. Kiala, you want to take the next one?
Yeah, sorry, I was going to pull up IDC information, but I feel I'm better. My time is better spent looking at all of you.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was going to pull it up and make it easier because it is a little bit challenging for folks to find. All right, I see a question about the application portal to start the grants process. So yes, if you can go from our website, that's fine. And it'll link to the grants.gov opportunity, but you can also just go straight to grants.gov. I encourage you to do that just because while our funding opportunity is one opportunity, it is one of many federal grant opportunities that are available to organizations. And ours is specific to the Native Hawaiian community, but there are other opportunities that you may be eligible for that you may want to just go poking around and go see what's out there. It doesn't cost you anything. It's a great resource for you to be able to see what the focus is for our office, the Department of the Interior, as well as other departments that might be applicable to you. So grants.gov is going to show you where and that CFDA number and the opportunity number that are in this presentation, as well as in our notice that we provided and the press release that were sent to you as part of your information. That's where you're gonna search and you're gonna find that opportunity. And then to be able to apply, it's on that grants.gov website. And there's information on how to go through it. But if you ever are struggling with it, let us know. We can see what we can do to help support you, or reach out to our partners at IBC and we can help you through the process as well. And then I see Malia, an informational session on de minimis administrative costs would be so helpful. I think just some of the admin parts, having some sessions on some of the admin parts of federal grants, or even just grants in general, might be helpful. I've been doing grants for a while, and I know it's not the easiest part in navigating all the administrative things, and it's usually not the part anybody else other than like me and Ka'aleleo really want to think about. So I can see, if you want to reach out to us and let us know what might be helpful to get training on, that would be really helpful for us, because we could think about what our program can offer to help support our communities, because those are things that are our kuleana, and that we can certainly help out on.
Sorry, we missed one question from, I just went back. Andrew, you posted a question.
Hui kalamai.
Yeah, no worries. Will the funds be released up front? And so the way it works is whoever the recipients end up being, they'll have to sign up with ASAP. ASAP is the service that DOI uses for requesting funds. And basically, the way that we're going to be doing it moving forward, and Malia had a different experience because she was in the initial cohort. But the way that it is basically it's a bank account basically, and you will have access to the full funding amount probably after October 15th when things get up to speed with the federal government and the new fiscal year begins. So that's and you'll have access to that, and we'll monitor the financials and things like that for how it works. So pretty much right away. There are certain things. So Keala mentioned stuff about compliance, environmental compliance needs and things. So depending on your project, we may need to withhold funding based on environmental compliance or Section 106 historic preservation needs. That could be a reason why funds may be withheld for a certain period of time. But it probably a really small portion of the projects that are out there. So but just FYI that could be something that happens depending on what your activities are.
And we'll likely discuss those with you, because you will have written that into your project proposal, hopefully, so that we will be able to let you know that there are some things that we want to make sure that compliance-wise you've met your compliance requirements before we do before we release the funds or start any work.
Thanks, Stanton, for putting the ASAP info in there. Yeah, that's the system.
Yeah. So if you go to the chat, for those of you who might not have the chat open, if you go to the chat, Stanton, one of our colleagues, has provided the link to ASAP for you all to have that as a reference. Okay. And looking back through the chat, I don't think we missed anything else, but hey, Monino Ka'oko, do we have any other questions? Oh, Kimo has a question. I see your, yeah, mahalo Malia. Oh, hold on, Kimo, you're muted. I'll try to unmute you. Oh, I know can you unmute yourself?
Yeah. No, my question was already answered. Mahalo.
Oh. The last thing, if I did want to mention, because this was an issue with some of our other grant funding opportunity was with SAM.gov. There were some entities that there are services out there that they'll charge you money to register for SAM.gov. Don't fall for those things. If your organization doesn't have the number, it's a free account. You can sign up, and that's SAM.gov is the website right there. So just be careful. There are scams for SAM.gov things out there. So.
Also, please note, yeah, I'm so glad, mahalo for mentioning that, Ka'alaleo. SAM.gov, you are required to register through SAM.gov and grants.gov. So make sure that you have those two things up and running so that once you get ready to submit your proposal, it'll go through easy. Some, like he mentioned, some folks were having issues because they didn't have their SAM.gov application complete or all their materials submitted. So let's make sure that you set yourself up for success as much as possible.
Yeah, and Auntie Mahelani here, Mahelani Cypher, she added kind of a note because she had to go through this experience. So sometimes there might be issues with your address and things. So if you haven't gotten your SAM.gov accounts, make sure addresses and names and things are all correct on all your documentation. That was a big one, and I think you need a physical address as well. I think that was another big issue. The folks at SAM.gov are helpful for kind of getting you through that process if you don't have that number yet. But please reach out to us and we can see what we can do to help get that process going. But sooner rather than later, because it can take weeks to get that registration going if you don't have it.
Yeah, and so even if you're not going, even if you've heard the information for HŌʻIHI and it's likely that you may not apply, if you may be applying for any other future federal funds, please go ahead and do your SAM.gov registration already, even if that's all you take away from this presentation. Yeah, and I note Malia's comment in the chat. If you haven't started or you don't have it up, just do it now and get it out of the way, because it can take a while, and that way you have the peace of mind and you've gotten that already done. And that if you do have any issues with it, we can, if we know about them ahead of time, we, again, like Ka'alaleo said, we can help you. But it's helpful if we have as much time as possible to be able to help navigate that process. Halealoha, I see your question. Can you please describe the required expected connections between proposed project's cultural practice and tourism? Can the project benefits be indirect to visitors, or does it require direct participation by visitors? I'm not sure I quite understand the question, but I'm going to start to try to answer it, and you can let me know if I'm answering it correctly, Halealoha. But the benefits have to be something that we can see. So it doesn't have, they might not necessarily participate directly. So especially if it's a cultural practice where, say, you are doing a demonstration of something, but it does have to be something where they're going to be gaining a cultural awareness and understanding of something. And we would like to see something measurable so that we can see either if it's number of people who were present and attended, or folks that were able to create something from the mea, from what they were participating in, those kinds of things. So if so that's what we're looking at. I know it's especially hard to quantify, and I will back up by saying I am a huge data nerd, but quantifying cultural experience is very difficult and very challenging, and something that arguably is not always a great fit, but something that you can show how a visitor would be able to gain a cultural appreciation and understanding and sense of kuleana to Hawaii and to our practices in Mo'omehel, that would be allowable in terms of a project.
Yeah. I was going to say, just as an example, the Waianae Economic Development Council, they had a grant for us in 2022. Their project was directed at culture practitioners to help them establish kind of their do like business registration, or trying to provide them with ways to better their economic opportunities within the visitor industry. And so in that instance, the way you're asking, yeah, it was indirect to visitors because you're not actually implementing towards visitors, you're implementing to the practitioner, but there are kind of these visitor links, so to say, to the activity itself.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you go back in the presentation, you'll see like the 4 categories of how things should be. If it falls within those categories, your project should be aligned with the goals of HŌʻIHI. And then Kili'i, yes, our presentation will be available on the website as well. So we knew there were a bunch of folks who reached out to us to let us know that they weren't able to attend the meeting today. So we wanted to make this available to everybody and make sure that they were able to see this at a later date. And then Megan, I see your question. Does it need to be a new project, or can it be an existing program or project? It can be an existing program or project. We just want to make sure that we understand that, and that should be written into your narrative as well, right? To let us know that would be part of your project experience. Right? You know, you've been doing something for X amount of time, and you have X amount of experience in doing this program. Okay, anybody else? Some final thoughts? We have like 3 more minutes.
If anybody else has further questions, just feel free to reach out to any of us at ONHR, or Keala specifically. You know, we're happy to help you guys with your process.
Yeah, if you're like me and you're a slow processor, I am a very slow processor. It usually takes me a day before I come up with questions. So if you have questions that come up at a later date, send them to us so that we'll respond to you, but we also want to make sure that anybody else who might also have similar questions, will make that information available to everybody so that folks are also aware. So with that, I want to say mahalo nui to all of you for coming. It was very well attended. We're so grateful that there's interest in our opportunity. Please feel free to reach out to us as you are preparing your proposals or with any questions that you have, so our office can provide you the support that you need. We are excited to receive your proposals and to see the wonderful work that you're doing in our community.